What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the BPB podcast. And today we're going to talk about Facebook and how Facebook admits defeat and what Facebook used to be. There's so many topics that we are going to cover in this episode, so get ready. For those of you who do not know, Rory and I have been running Facebook ads for what feels like a century because we've got a lot of experience in this, and Rory actually brought this to my attention of what is actually happening today, because I pulled all of my clients' Facebook ads because they were not performing well. And so we're going to dive deep into what the hell is happening with Facebook, why it has turned into a giant dumpster fire, and what we can do to keep getting our clients the results that they deserve. So Rory, let's jump in. What do you got? What do you got for everybody?
Well, I think the big question everyone has is Facebook going to turn out like Myspace?
Ooh, such a hard burn. Even having that in the same sentence. Ouch. Oh, what's up, Tom? If you're listening.
Yeah, I remember Myspace. I mean, Myspace was like, no one thought it was going to go away. Like, and it was great, right? My band, one of my bands was one of the first 1,000 bands on Myspace. Oh. And we got so much sales and traction from it. And then just suddenly, it got bought out and it just took a dive because they just changed too many things too quickly. Yeah. And the whole thing just crashed and no one wanted to be on it anymore. Yeah. Well, the question is that what's happening with Facebook right now? And the answer is, maybe, right? We don't exactly know, but we are in this weird transition phase where Facebook is, in our opinion, is shooting itself in the foot. Okay?
A lot. Yeah.
So for context, what's going on? Okay, so Apple issued this statement at the beginning of 2021, beginning of the year. They say, we're going to make an update in a few months that is going to make it so that our privacy is going to be the most important thing to our clients. And they're going to have to essentially opt in to receive any type of advertising from, and almost singling out Facebook, right? Yeah. And saying that if you're going to receive these types of marketing messages, you're going to have to check a box
on the chopping block.
Yeah. And so what happened is Facebook responded and said, Apple's trying to stop marketers from being able to run their businesses, which is kind of true. They're not wrong in that. But at the same time, Apple's looking at it as a privacy issue, which they're not wrong about either.
Right.
Right. We've got these two extremes going on. And so it's created this issue where we've got Apple trying to do the right thing for privacy because everyone's been so concerned about privacy, especially in, the last few years. We've seen, documentaries come out like the Social Dilemma. We had the Cambridge Analytica scandals. We had election scandals, hackings and all these things that have gone on. Mm-hmm. And so they're saying we need to better control the privacy side of things. Well, Facebook's on the other side going, well, we need to be able to market to people and to support businesses in those efforts, which we're going to talk about a little bit more and what that looks like. And they're clashing. Apple's not budging. Mm-hmm. Facebook is trying to fight it, but essentially they're admitting defeat because now they're scrambling to try and make their systems work for Apple. And the reason that we're saying that they are shooting themselves in the foot is because, at least in our opinion, or my opinion, at least, I'm not going to include Dominica in this because this is my opinion, but if she can say so, is that Apple only accounts for about 20% of the share of traffic online.
Yes.
Okay, so most of the other traffic comes from Android devices and desktop devices and things like that, Windows-based computers, Linux. Mm-hmm. So when you look at it like that, Facebook has broken all of their advertising systems It's gotten to the point where you can't even really run ads on their platform at the moment, as of the recording of this podcast episode.
Which is Thursday, March 12th, 2021.
Yeah. So they've broken all their systems. Now you can technically run ads. You can go on. Some accounts can't choose conversions as an option to, have for your ads. And if you're familiar with running Facebook ads, if you aren't able to choose conversions, well, you're not going to get any results unless, you're running retargeting ads to an audience that you've already run conversion ads to in the first place. Right?
Correct.
So you can run retargeting ads to audiences that already exist. Not a problem there. But what do you do? What if you want to run to cold traffic? Well, you don't really have any options at this point.
Yeah, good luck.
Unless there are some accounts, some people are able to. The majority of accounts you can't. So that's what that's what we've run into. That's what we've been hearing from a lot of people that have been reaching out to us and saying like, we're running into this. People that we've been reaching out to online are like, yeah, we're running into this too. We can't do this. So that's why we wanted to have this conversation. That's why we wanted to talk about this episode. What do? We got all these clients and we can't run these ads. We're not going to continue just throwing their money away. Facebook will take your money. They'll let you run the ads, right?
Oh boy. Yep.
Just don't choose conversions, but you can still run the ads, right? But you're going to get junk traffic. And we've talked about this before, how Facebook will let you run ads and send you junk traffic. We talked about this in the Organic Marketing is Dead episode. And so you don't want to do that. You don't want to just say, oh, I can't choose conversion. I'm going to choose traffic or whatever it is. Okay. So right off the bat, we've got issues with the Facebook account. Now, the next thing, okay. Why are they shooting themselves in the foot? Because not only did they break their systems, but they're adjusting everything, like we said, to work for 20%, and you can't run for the other 80% of the people out there currently. If they had just left their systems alone and said, let's leave it, just exclude Apple, we'll work on our systems, but you can run to the 80% of people who don't have Apple devices, they'd be still a functioning system.
Way better off, that's for sure.
Yeah. So what we're going to talk about is, well, what do you do? What do you do when we'll call it the number 2 ad platform in the world comes crashing down?
Well, what's number 1? AdWords?
Well, Google.
Okay. So yes, AdWords.
Facebook being, the most known and probably the cheaper version, easiest entry point for most people.
Well, let's back it up a little bit. Okay. So you know this, Rory. I got my start in social media marketing from running Facebook ads.
Back when we could get half a cent leads.
Yes, exactly.
And when you could target down to one person.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Ever.
Oh, I know. When geo-targeting was efficient, it's not anymore. This was even before geo-targeting, where it was like you knew exactly who you were getting, where they were, what was going on. It was so specific.
So we talk about privacy issues now. Yeah. Like back then, all of the things that we're dealing with now, like that we're saying, like things are actually not that bad comparatively. Like they were really bad 10 years ago.
I know. And it's something that we didn't. Well, I can't say we, I can't speak for you, but it's something that myself and my agency and my clients were willing to kind of like, whatever, kind of like, we don't really care about that because we're getting good results.
We didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't even a part of the thought process because it wasn't part of the global conversation. No one was thinking like, we need to be thinking about like privacy issues or anything like that.
It wasn't brought up, but it was still one of those things where it was like, is there something happening that we need to be paying more attention to? But Facebook kept coming out with these policies where it was like, oh, everything's safe, everything's fine. And it wasn't a big deal. And that's more scary, right? Yeah. So my firm was responsible for $1 million of ad spend on behalf of my clients. We ran every single month and we got an insane ROI. It was month over month, year over year. It was like, we're crushing it. And one day, all of a sudden, algorithm changes, privacy policy changes and the switch turns and the light goes off. And it's like, what in the hell? Are you serious? And ever since then, that was like
2016.
Yeah, I was going to say like 7 years ago. And all of a sudden, it just has been a dumpster fire ever since.
It was like, there was the Wild Wild West, right? This happened with Google, right? Before Google had their like major update where it was the Wild Wild West of Google. And it was insane the amount of money being made through Google ads.
Which was great for me at the time.
Yeah. And then Google had a shift and they did this major update. And Russell Brunson is known as like, it's part of his whole story. He's like, his whole business shut down. Luckily, that didn't happen to me. I wasn't relying on Google ads at that point because I was doing a lot of SEO stuff. Mm-hmm. But for the people who were,
it was brutal. Let me just share with you. It was friggin' brutal. And it sucked. Which is why Rory and I had more conversations about how much it sucked to get to the point we are now.
But yeah, I mean, ad accounts just shut down. Mm-hmm. You can't run ads anymore, and you can't run ads to these types of websites anymore. It was like stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And they changed the whole model, right? So, and it's the same thing. Facebook did the same thing right around 2016. Massive changes to how they do all the stuff. We're in that same thing with Facebook right now, in the middle of it, in the thick of it. Except we just don't know how it's going to turn out. In 2016, there was a shift. And yes, it didn't go back to what it was, but it was still a usable platform.
Well, here's the problem though, right? So back then there was like, oh, you're doing millions in Facebook. Go over to Google Ads and see what that does for you. Or go over to this other thing. Right now, kind of not another platform.
Okay, so let's look at, what your other options are.
Yeah.
Okay. So you want to go from Facebook or to Google Ads. Why was Facebook so great before all this? Is because for a smaller entry point, your business could get started. Say $500 or $1,000 a month.
The ad retargeting was cheap.
Ad retargeting was very cheap.
Yeah.
Right. So you could get started for that lower investment. So small business owners could get in the door and start building their businesses,
which was huge. And that was the entry point for me as an online marketer, right? Where I was selling these packages on these platforms, which was like, you can get it at this baseline, but
and then build people's businesses.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
And that helps people and it helps them grow. Right. But then with Google, it's not like that.
No.
1,000 to tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands to get into that market.
And it takes time.
And it takes time. I mean, you've got a minimum of 30 days, but then even on top of that, you've got to build up your ad account and all these things. So, I mean, there's a lot that goes into.
Okay, real quick, pause. Here's the deal. Anyone listening to this is so important. And I've talked about this before. If you're a business owner and you're not currently working with a marketing agency, if you're considering doing Google Ads, okay, it will take at least 3 months to see some results. Be gentle on the people that you are working with to get these ads started. It is not an instantaneous thing. If someone comes to you and they say, hey, listen, I'm going to guarantee within 30 days you'll have results. Nope, no, you won't. It's going to be 30, 60, 90. Give it the 90 days. Give it the 90 days before you start to see some results. Okay, resume. Seriously, because I can't tell you how many people come to me and say, oh, so-and-so said they can get me results in 2 weeks. And I just laugh. I'm like, well, great. If you think they can do that, go for that. I'm not going to guarantee that because it's not a reality. I'm going to tell you the real results that I can get you because it's going to happen in 3 months. That's it. It's not going to happen right away. And here's why.
Yeah. Well, not only do you have to build up your ads and build up the algorithm, build up the ad account, but you have to test. We talk about this a lot on the podcast. You have to test your ads. You have to test your landing pages. You've got to test your follow-up process.
Okay. Well, wait, you have to build your landing pages. You got
to build your ads. You got to build your landing pages. Like,
so it takes time.
Exactly. And a lot of times when people come in and say, just run our ads, they don't even have any of the landing pages or the funnels or any of this stuff built too. So then you're starting off and you've got to build all that stuff on top of it. So if you're wanting someone to just come in and just be like, run my ads, it's like, well, we're not going to run ads to the homepage of your website. You're not going to get any sales.
I can't tell you, Rory, I can't tell you how many times, or I can, because it's you and you know, I can tell you how many times someone has come to me and been like, hey, want to run these ads? I've got $500,000. Can you do it? And even with that budget, I'm like, no, there needs to be systems put in place. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care. Millions and millions. There needs to be lead magnets and systems in place in order to get the end result. And so if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I've got all the money in the world, I don't care. Doesn't matter, because things need to be put in place properly in order for us to be effective, or in order for you to be effective in what we're talking about. So,
yeah. You wouldn't like open a furniture store and be like, okay, here's my showroom that I'm going to show you furniture, and then just have an empty warehouse.
Exactly.
But that's what a lot of people do online.
Yes. And they just assume, oh, I've got this A team. It's going to be great.
Yeah. And then people show up at your warehouse and you're like, well, we have these nice couches. We can sell them to you for $3,000. They're like, well, can I sit in it? What colors do you have? I'd like to see it. I would like to feel it. And you're like, well, we don't have them here. And they're like, right?
Just a concept.
Yeah.
Nope. It's eye-opening. It's humbling to look at these different things. And money is not king. Let me just say that flat out. If you're looking to run social media ads, and I know we're talking about Facebook and we're talking about these updates and things that have happened and Apple and all that jazz, money is not king here. Strategy is. And that is where Rory and I come in, where we are looking at these things every single day and going, how can we get these results for our clients, even when these updates happen and these different things come up where it's like, well, crap. Okay, wait a second. So we were getting epic results over here, but all of a sudden there's none over here. So what do we do? So Rory, what do we do?
Okay. So yeah, a few things. The extremes, like we've got Apple wanting, privacy. We've got Facebook wanting, businesses. But what's happening is that the businesses are getting pushed out and the consumers are being misled about information.
So the original purpose of Facebook, okay, or the Facebook, is how it was originally positioned, okay, or how it was brought to the world. It allowed Harvard students to use their .edu email addresses and photos to connect with other students at the school. So it was like a school connection network. Then the student at the time, Mark Zuckerberg, he foresaw a way of bringing the existing social experience of college onto the internet. So I'm sure we've all seen that movie.
Social Network or something.
Yes, thank you. Where it showed the story of how Mark Zuckerberg came to be and how Facebook came to be and all of that. A super simplistic way of connecting other college students together. And then it became this huge empire.
And there was no advertising for a long time.
Then they saw an opportunity.
They started thinking, well, how do we take this public? How do we get this on the stock market? Well, you can't get a company on the stock market unless you can show that a company can earn revenue. Well, Zuckerberg is famous for when that senator asked him, well, how do you make money? And he's like, well, Senator, we run advertising, right? Or whatever he said, that's the foundation of the business model.
That, I just have to say, made me laugh out loud so hard. When I watched Zuckerberg just sit in his chair and he's like, well, Senator, we run advertising and that's how we, earn revenue. And the senator was like, what do you mean? He's like, are you kidding me? What do you mean? What are you talking about? Have you ever seen an ad? It says sponsored, it's on the top. What are you talking about? You don't know. My skin crawled with like, how do you not understand this? And I felt for Mark in that moment where I was like, oh, dude, have you ever gone to Amazon? Have you ever seen a jacket you wanted to buy? And all of a sudden it was on the right-hand column in the ads. That's called ad retargeting. It's so for you and me, Rory, this stuff is so basic. And for all of our clients, it's so basic. But for the average consumer or for someone in Congress that doesn't understand, I mean, it's like, what is this? Where do we go from here?
Yeah, and then you've got those two sides where you've got like people who are fighting for privacy. They think that every single bit of information is being seen by everybody at any given point. Like as marketers, the thing to understand is that we don't see any of that information. We don't know that, that Jimmy so-and-so in Madison, Wisconsin is getting is buying a pair of sunglasses. Like none of that. We don't see any of that and we don't care. Right. But the thing to think about is like the other side of it is that if as an advertiser, or let's look at it as a consumer. Okay. So let's say that you as a consumer, you go to a website and you're looking to buy a treadmill and you say, you get distracted or like the kids come in and you're like, oh, that's a cool treadmill. I'm thinking of buying it, but you have to leave the website and you forget about it. Well, the advertiser with what they're trying to set up with the current situation, why Facebook is fighting Apple, would only receive information like maybe they would say this person, might be interested in sporting goods. Mm-hmm. Okay. So they get that information and they're like, well, we don't know what sporting goods. Let's advertise them a bowling ball. Mm-hmm. Right. And then you get an ad for a bowling ball and you're like, well, I have no interest in bowling. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. So that's the downside is that you don't get anything that's relevant to you in your advertising.
It's a retargeting mix-up. It's like non-relevant, good or bad. Maybe I'm interested in bowling. No, I'm not. But it's a privacy info issue. It's a retargeting mix-up, and there's a few bad apples in what you're looking at for sure, and that happens. But something I have to say, I cannot drive this home enough. Every single thing you post on the internet, I don't care what social media platform you're on, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, whatever. The second you upload and post that, it is forever there. I don't care if you go and delete it 2 seconds after, it is forever there. So know that as a consumer, as an individual that is doing something, this is so important.
And not only that, but forever not yours anymore.
Correct.
Yeah. So
forever
you have to think about
not
that.
yours. If you have never looked over the terms and conditions, the privacy policies of any of these social media platforms, let me recap it for you real quick. Basically what it says, we can take any of your content and use it to our advantage and do whatever the hell we want with it. Pictures of your kids, pictures of yourself, boudoir photos, whatever you're posting. Okay. So whenever you click post, be sure that you are very clear. And this is what I want to post and have it there forever. I know it sounds very intense the way I'm talking about this, but I preach this with my clients because they don't understand. Okay. It's so, so important. So please be aware of this and think about the photos that you've posted when you were like 15 years old versus now. Probably a bit different.
This is where a lot of people have gotten in trouble because they maybe a few years ago, they posted a photo where they're out with their friends drinking. And then someone like they're looking for a new job. And then someone who's recruiting them goes and looks at their social media profiles and like, I don't want someone like that.
That's right. Basically, don't post anything you wouldn't want Jesus to see.
Or your grandma or your whatever.
Grandma. Yeah. I mean, truly, like grandma, grandpa, whoever, like just don't, because doing that damage control is so extreme. And that is something that both Rory and I do. We do a lot of reputation management. We do our darndest to look at the various things that have been posted and do our best to do SEO management and take things down if it wasn't couth or whatever at the time. But that work, trying to do that work and backtrack it is very hard. But that's been a big part of my business in the last 5 years, is to track down things like that and to remedy it. But just think before you post. That's the biggest thing here.
Yeah, definitely. Now, so the other side of it is the little guys are getting squeezed out of the market. So what's going to happen? You're going to just have big players. So
by little guys, you're talking about the small business owners, right?
Small business owners that are getting pushed out of the market, right?
Yeah.
Because Facebook has historically been the entry point for a lot of people. And so it's going to make the entry point for a lot of people who are trying to start businesses a lot harder.
Yes.
And so, but we've got some solutions. Because we got to help you out. But it's going to take some innovations, willingness to do things a little differently than, Facebook was great. And we're not saying that necessarily Facebook couldn't be great again. We just, at this point, we just don't know because the systems are all in disarray. Mm-hmm. But you can't put all your eggs in one basket either. So let's look at some other stuff. What can you do? Okay. So the very first thing we're going to say, YouTube.
It's still part of Google, but YouTube has their algorithms down pat.
The reason I'm saying a lot of this stuff though about like you're gonna have to kind of step up is because getting in front of a video camera, not everyone wants to do it. But that's the reason why there's opportunity with YouTube. Because if you're willing to get on camera or even just do slides, in some cases you can get away with. Depends on the market, and you can put these videos together. Then you can get in front of an audience, and you can do so at a lot lower cost than running search-based Google ads.
Well, and something that you've talked about a few times, Rory, you mentioned that we should have an episode all based on like proper technique for being on camera and how to do this properly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we should do that soon.
We can help all of you guys with that because being on camera, especially for the first time, can be really nerve-wracking. Or maybe it's the first time you've really seen yourself and you're like, what do I do?
It's the first time I was on camera. I was so bad.
Me too. We all are.
It was the word. I mean, I'm not necessarily great now, but I don't have any anxiety about getting on camera.
That's key
now. But back, even this was before I met you when I shot my first video for my audio engineering services. Oh, it was so bad. And Carly remembers, and she actually mentioned it a few days ago, where she's like, I can't believe how bad you were in shooting that video.
Thanks,
because it was so bad because I didn't have a teleprompter or anything. I had a whiteboard and I had to script it out, and I could only do one line at a time, and then it was a cut, and then it was one line at a time, and then a cut, and I was so like flat and monotone, and it was just so bad.
That's part of the learning process though. And look at you now. Rory does these incredible YouTube clips at the very end of every video that we do. And you can just see like he means it. He's like vibrant. He's on it. He talks about what we're going to do next week. Like, dude, you're crushing it. But yes, that takes time. That takes confidence, right?
Well, and there's just like little things that you learn from doing video that help out. And that a lot of people make some of these mistakes, and we still make these mistakes as well. I mean, I say and like probably 1,000 times a day. And
I touch my face, which I shouldn't do.
Oh yeah. Touching your face is one of the things that you shouldn't. I had to, I don't know if you notice a lot of times I'll put my hands behind my back. I'll put my hands in my pockets. I actually learned not touching my face from working in restaurants because you're really, really, if you work in restaurants, you really should not touch your face. Even if you're going to go wash your hands, people see you touching your face and they don't always see you washing your hands.
Aha. Okay.
And so what I learned to do is that even if I had an itch on my face, I wouldn't necessarily ignore it, but what I would do is I would use my shoulder. What it comes down to is like hands, like away from your face. Like one of the big things. If that's going to be the video tip, or for this episode, we'll go into more in another one. But hands away from your face. And the reason is psychologically, and it's not that you are necessarily lying or anything like that. It's the perception that you give people when someone touches their face. It makes someone question that you are potentially lying, or that you don't potentially believe what you are saying.
One of my favorite things to do is to watch Shark Tank and to see what they're all doing with their hands. It's like one of my favorite things. So Mark always does one of these, right? You see this where he's like, it's in his lap. It's like this. Yeah. It's like,
this is it's
a triangle. For those of you not watching on YouTube, it's like you put your fingers together and you put your thumbs right together. Okay. So you make a triangle. And then you set it in your lap. It's the ultimate power.
Yeah.
It's like the power,
Dominance.
power and dominance.
People who do that, it's not only power and dominance, but they have a very high thought. Like they think very highly of themselves, almost, and in some places very conceited, sometimes negative.
Interesting.
You have to be, you have to be very careful if you're going to use that type of.
Interesting. Okay. So I've never experienced that, because whenever I personally am doing interviews, my hands just fall into that position, into my lap, but they're intertwined like this.
And down?
Yes. Always down. All right. So I know that it's fun to talk about body language, and I'm sure you all love learning what I do with my hands when I'm in meetings, but let's save that for another episode. Oh my gosh. Let's get back to the whole reason that we wanted to talk about this in the first place. And that is making sure that you guys have some really good tools and how you can continue to help your business thrive, help your clients' businesses grow, all of that, right? And so we didn't want to leave you hanging. All right. So let's get back to some of that stuff. You may have heard some of these things that Rory and I do in previous episodes. The one that really comes to mind is how to get clients for free. We share so many tips about how Rory and I go about doing that in our own businesses, but some other things that you can do. So we already mentioned YouTube, and YouTube's great, but you can also do some outsourcing and hire a VA to work for you on your behalf, like as an assistant while you're sleeping, to help you bring in some more leads. And if you're a consultant, like podcasting is a great way to get in front of your target audience on like a super large level and meet some, super cool people.
I also want to say, just to add, that if you can't afford to get an assistant, if you're just at that place, like just put in the time yourself on LinkedIn, right? But don't spam people. Actually build connections, get to know people. That's the real key. Just don't send out blanket messages to people. Okay. And build those relationships and get to know them and be helpful. That's the key. How can you help people? If you can help people and build those relationships, then you can continue to grow your business.
Mm-hmm. And we have met so many of our guests through LinkedIn. And it was those people that were very specific about the personal side of what we do. It wasn't just like, hey, here's all my information. Can I be on your podcast? It was, hey, I really love that one episode where you mentioned, affiliate marketing, or I love the episode where you talked about how organic marketing is dead. And they were so specific that it made me go, okay, let's chat, because we received so many messages. And so anytime you can insert like a personal factor, I think we even talked about this with Matthew Comfer on Learning to Lead, that episode, where again, like Rory is saying, the more you can build relationships, the better your business will be off. Trust me, because nobody just wants to be spammed all day long. So we've got affiliate marketing opportunities as well. That takes some time to build out if you're not familiar with like the technical side of that. There's also the referrals though. So big part of my business, and I know Rory, for you too, like we thrive on getting referrals, and we always give like really large incentives and large kickbacks to those people who bring us those clients, because we wouldn't have them right without them. And that all comes back again, building relationships. We've built these epic relationships. We've been so fortunate to have these awesome clients that actually want to bring us the business and know that we're going to support whether it's their friends, their family, their colleagues. And so don't forget about the power of referrals.
And think about why you can offer these incentives. It's because you don't have to pay any marketing.
Right. Exactly.
To get that person in the door. So if you would normally spend, say, $2,000 to get a client, and you only, and you can spend $1,000 to give them a referral fee, I mean, you're doing really well off,
Heck yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. When you start to break down the customer acquisition, it's like, okay, so I just had one conversation versus like waiting around to see what Facebook would have not done. Right. I don't mean to crap all over Facebook. Facebook was really good at one point, as we know, but now.
Just at the moment, it's not working out shit. But what we'd like to emphasize is that it may kick back into gear, and we're hoping it will.
Yeah, definitely. But something else that I think is kind of fun, it's fun for me because I'm not very good at it today, and Rory's great at it. So it's fun for me to continue to learn about it. And for the longest time, I always thought that email marketing was kind of dead. I'm like, kind of dead. too many emails, too much spam. I'm not excited when emails come through anymore, but it's starting to get a lot better. And Rory has been teaching me some just awesome techniques to get me like excited about it again. And so, Rory, do you want to let everyone know what the hot tips are for email marketing right now?
Sure. So, well, that's the thing we're going to talk about is that you should be building an email list. And like you were just saying, a lot of people think that email's been around so long and so many people have said, oh, email's dead. But compared to social media, people are a lot more engaged and they actually tend to buy from their email compared to social media significantly more. I think it's like 139% or some crazy number more so than from social media.
Because it's personal, right? It's right there. It's much more personal.
Yeah. And because social media, as we talked about, tends to be so much more interruption marketing versus intent-based marketing. So that's step one is build an email list. But how do you build an email list if you don't have one, or if your email list is on the smaller side? Well, you've got to have something of value to give people. Now, sometimes this is free, sometimes it's lower ticket, like in some cases, like with Dominica, like you have your book that sometimes you give it away for free. Sometimes you're charging shipping and handling for a physical version. Sometimes it's $1 or $5, $10 audiobook, things like that. It's low ticket items, right? That you're promoting. And those offers are things that are easy entry points for people. So when you drive advertising in any form to it, it's something that, because it's so low barrier of entry, if it's enticing enough, people want it. And they're just like, they're making that snap decision. We've talked about this before, is that when it's low ticket, it's got to be an instantaneous snap decision.
A no-brainer micro commitment from them.
Yeah, exactly. Just get them to the next step.
Right.
And that's when you use the free offers, is just to get them the next step, but it's got to have value and it can't be misleading. And that was what, when we were talking about the gurus misleading people, that's what we were talking about is in another episode, is that a lot of times they'll say, download my PDF and you'll earn $10,000 in the next hour or whatever it is, right? You don't want to mislead people in that way. Just give them solid value, something that they can take action on right away. It's got to be short, to the point, something that they can consume within about 5 or 10 minutes, nothing longer than that, really. Unless it's in the case of a book, where that's a high value item that you're giving them. Okay.
Right.
Now, the ways that we can look at for driving traffic to an offer like that. Okay. So
if you don't have an already well-established list, like this is part of the building process, right?
Yeah. Now, okay, let's start with, what do you have to do something like that? So we talked about, like, what is your offer? You have to have a landing page. You have to have somewhere where you can capture the email address. Okay. So that's step one. That's the page where people arrive at that says, this is what you're going to get. Okay. So you capture the email address and then you take them and give them the email address. Well, then you have to have a really strong follow-up email sequence. This includes like welcome emails and then follow-ups to who you are and what you're about, and other offers that you have to work with you in some form, and learn about other products and services you have, webinars you might be doing. Okay.
That are always of value.
Yes.
Value.
Of value. Yes. That's the key. What else? Okay. So once you've got your foundation, that's your foundation, you have to drive traffic in. So that, that's what we've been talking about, right?
Can I interrupt just super quick?
Yes, you can.
Okay. So we've got the foundation, but then you also need the systems in place, right? To help that foundation be even more solid. So we love
automation, right?
Automation. Exactly. So we love ActiveCampaign, right? That's who I use. Rory, I know you use ActiveCampaign, and it's one of the best automations put in place, tagging. It's not that complicated. It took me a little while because I'm just a slow learner, but anyone can really take the time to learn how these automations work to make your life easy. The last thing you want to do is, drive a ton of traffic. And then you're like, oh gosh, what do I do now? Do I respond to each one of these emails? Well, no, you automate some things, like think a couple steps ahead before building your list or buying traffic or any of that. So anyways, go ahead, Rory.
Yeah, don't just only have a welcome email and that's be the end of it.
Yeah.
Right. But also, think about like, what is the next step? Like, where do you want to lead people?
What's the sequence?
Yeah. Like, how are you going to monetize? If you're giving them something for free, how are you going to monetize that? Don't just send them offer after offer after offer. You got to have value, right?
And timing.
Yeah. And yeah, don't send 30 emails in 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Timing is so important. It's crazy. Like the psychology around the timing between emails. Oh my gosh.
The other side of it is then don't just send one email a month or else you're forgotten. Too. People get scared to not send emails or to send too many emails. You have to find the right balance. And tricky to find that balance. Every market's a little bit different expectations. So you have to test that and start seeing where that drop off point is. And you start to find it. You can't be scared to have people unsubscribe. Okay. You have to be willing to take some of those chances. And that's when you have traffic coming in consistently, you're less and less scared to take those chances to figure out where you should be.
100%. Just a quick story. Client of mine sent an email just yesterday and was really sad and saying, "Oh, I've gotten so many unsubscribes. What's wrong? What am I doing wrong?" And I said, "Nothing, because what you're sending and what you're doing today is different from 6 months ago, which is the last time she sent an email. And those people aren't interested in what you have going on today. That's perfect. You don't want to continue paying for these people to just open your emails and not do anything. So anytime you see an unsubscribe, you're like, okay, awesome. Thanks. Hopefully we can connect again. But if it's not catering to what you're doing right now, don't worry about it. It's saving you money in the long run, and it's saving their time too. So,
well, yeah. And if you have a list that you haven't emailed, that ends up being a lot of people who they built up email lists and then just, for whatever reason, just didn't email them for quite a while. Well, you have to warm them up. You have to reintroduce yourself to them.
I think one of the funniest ways that you said this before, Rory, he said, "Hey, I'm Rory. Want to get married?"
Right.
It's like, wait, what? Like, back it up. Like, let's have a little discussion. Yeah. Let's get to know one another again. Okay. So once people have started to put systems in place and they're in that process of testing, let's say they don't have a list, or a decent sized list, then what do you recommend people do from here?
Okay. Well, one point I want to hit just on what you said there, decent sized list. You can do a lot with a small list, meaning like a few hundred people. So don't worry if your list is not massive or anything like that.
It's targeted, right? We need it targeted.
First, targeted list, quality list, build your relationship with your list, which we've talked about. Small list, you can build, like if you've built the relationship right, you can make a lot of money from that list. Okay. So don't worry about that. What matters most is, are people opening and clicking the links on your emails? Clicking the links is what matters the most, and going to where you want them to go. Okay. So that's what you pay attention to. Okay. So driving traffic, that's what we got to look at. Okay. First off is partnerships with other people. And you can build relationships with people who have email lists. In first instances, some people have email lists and they're willing to allow you to pay for promotions to them. You can do joint venture or swap promotions with them. So meaning that if you have email lists of similar sizes, you could say, "Hey, I'm going to promote you, you promote me," or a mutually beneficial relationship like that, and promote each other.
But it has to make sense, right? Like, it's easy for me to share with my email list your services because it's something my list would have an interest in.
Yeah.
You're not going to be selling jewelry through my email list. That doesn't make me like, what is this? Doesn't make any sense, right? Like Rory said, mutually beneficial, but it has to make sense. You're not just going after large lists or large followings. It's got to make sense.
Yeah, it's got to be the right list and the right people. But you can build these partnerships with people, and there's a lot of people who have big lists who are just looking to monetize it. They don't know how to actually market to their own lists properly. We've talked about this with influencers where they have these huge audiences, but they just don't know how to monetize that audience. And if you know how to monetize an audience, but you just don't have the audience, then you're in a great position, because you can just partner with these people and build relationships, build businesses even together around that, So there's definitely opportunities around that. Now, the other side of that is something called solo ads. And this is where you can buy into people who have lists, and you can kind of test the waters with people who have lists, where you can buy specific chunks of traffic from those lists that they have. Now, the other thing is media. So media companies, meaning like Forbes, Entrepreneur, stuff like that, like traditionally magazine-based companies, where they actually allow you to advertise through their email, to their email subscribers.
It's amazing how easy it is to actually find that information. So for those of you who don't know how to do this, right, you go to these websites and say like Forbes.com, you scroll all the way down to the very bottom of the website where like the footer is, and you'll see a link that says advertisement or advertise.
Yeah.
And you click that, you'll see their media kit, you open it up, and then they show you exactly on the digital side or the email side. That's what you're focused on. You're not focused on the print, right? Because you're sending an email. You can see the different segmented lists, and you can see how many dedicated email subscribers are there. And these are people that are highly targeted. And some of these publications have millions of people, but it's really easy. The information that you send these companies, you give them the URL, the landing page you want them to go to, and then the email swipe, like the main email that you want, hyperlinked and everything ready to go.
I would test with solo ads before doing anything with the media buying.
See, that's why you're better at this than me.
Because
there you go.
With the solo ads, you can actually buy in small chunks and scale up, and test your landing page and your process, that your follow-up process through it. And then when you go to something like Forbes or Entrepreneur and you run a larger promotion, you already know that all of your systems are converting.
All this stuff takes time to really develop and like remember. There's a lot of moving parts to email marketing, but all that to say, I'm feeling like that is a super good direction. I know we're seeing a lot of success with that. Again, goes back to providing value, and it takes some strategy for sure. It's not the good old Facebook days when you can just put up a simple ad and you're getting conversions right away. Like, it takes more strategy now, but I don't see that as a bad thing. Like, we don't get to be lazy, it's taking the time to really continue to cultivate those relationships, make sure the foundation is being laid properly. So it's one thing to get a sale through an ad, but that doesn't mean that whoever bought that product or service knows you or knows the business. It's just kind of like, oh, great product. But the email marketing really allows you to really get to know your audience, which I think is important and a lot of people forget about.
Yeah. And you own that relationship. Whereas when someone is just a Facebook friend or whatever, or is just in a Facebook audience, Facebook goes away, then you don't have that audience anymore. And that was always one of my things when people were like so focused on, oh, I'm just going to build my custom audiences and things like that. I was like, yes, do that. That's great. Don't rely on it though, because they can go away. We've seen it happen before.
Yes, we have.
And that's what we're kind of seeing.
Yeah, exactly.
Not necessarily that it'll completely go away. We just don't know. And it's better to be prepared and diversify so that we're not stuck and trapped.
I never want to feel like I did ever again when the algorithm shifted so intensely in like 2016, right? That's what you said before.
Yeah.
Or it was just like, what do I do now? Time to reinvent and learn new things, which I was able to do quickly, but that was a big chunk of my business. Anyways, well, this has been fun. Thank you guys so much again for taking the time to listen to what we have to say, because we put a lot of time and a lot of effort into continuing to just find out what's working and what's working right now. So we'll continue to bring you some great content. I know we're going to have an episode coming up here soon all about SEO. So that'll be fun. Rory's going to be on the seat for that one again. Yeah. That'll be fun. Anything else for this episode, Rory?
Well, just realize that there are solutions. Like we've talked about them. There are some solutions, right? So if you've been relying heavily on Facebook and you're just freaking out, like there are other things you can do. Okay. So it's not all doom and gloom. Okay.
It's not. Even though I'm pretty passionate about how, Facebook did me wrong. Still, there's always going to be other alternatives and other things. You just have to think outside the box and find what's going to work and learn something new.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just going back to the basics, like what has been working and looking at the trends and of things like email, like what has happened since the pandemic happened. And when we looked at the data, it's like email has been the thing that has been going really well. And foundationally, business-wise, what has always worked for us: relationships, building partnerships, referrals, these types of things continue over and over and over to fuel our business, no matter whatever is going on in the world, no matter whatever is going on in advertising. We've always been able to continue to go because of that. But you can do the same thing too. So just think of that, build those relationships, build the partnerships, and then look into some of these other advertising. And if you need help, and if you're looking for some help in the media buying aspects, you can reach out to us. We have our teams that work on that, and we'll help you.
Yeah, we'd love to. We would love to meet each and every one of you. I want to have an event soon. It'd be really fun.
Yeah,
I'm really looking forward to that.
When it's safe, we will.
All right, guys, that's it for this week. We will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
On the next episode, we speak with Matthew Yehes about scaling through outsourcing. Matthew's not just an agency owner, he runs an e-commerce business completely with remote staff, including his chief of staff, who now oversees 2 companies for him with over 50 people. We discuss the truth about companies hiring people overseas, what you need to focus on as an entrepreneur. No, it's not operations or social media, why you should not hire a VA, and a whole bunch more. And remember, Apple Podcasts. Yeah, you know what I'm gonna say. Review. Is that enough? All right. See you on the next one.